Are the San Francisco 49ers in the middle of a retool or a rebuild? And I think there's a big difference in between what both of those things mean. And we're going to talk about it all right now. Make sure you like, subscribe, and let's get this thing cooking. Woo! Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What's going down, Sourdough Squad? What are we doing today? Happy Monday to you all. Shout out all the SDS. We see you dropping SDS in the building. Good to see you guys. Let's go. Hopefully you had a phenomenal weekend. Hope you had a good weekend just like Cabo Kyle did. Cabo Kyle out here cooking. Let's go. Shout out all the SDS. I want to make sure I get you guys in. Thank you, Hendrix. 67,000 subscribers. What a time to be alive. Could you believe it? Look at what all the SDS has done. 67K. Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. Shout out to the SDS. Best squad in the land. Shout out to everyone. Boomerang, I'm doing just dandy. Hopefully you are doing well yourself. But we're in the middle of the off season, so you know what it is, man. We are in no man's land of news. Really, there'll be some stuff coming out soon. But right now, we're just doing our best to be able to try to build out this roster and like really identify what it is. Can't wait for 69K. Oh, it's gonna be vibey around 69K. Right now, we're at Justin's school numbers right now. But yeah, 69K is gonna be legendary. But shout out all the SDS, man. So let's get into it because I think there's a lot of different ways to kind of identify an offseason, identify what is going on, because we know the San Francisco 49ers have a ton of free agents. They have 25 free agents, whether unrestricted, restricted, or ERFAs. So the 49ers have 25 players that they got to figure out if they're going to re-sign. And on top of that, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be leaving. No Jimmy G. Shout out to Jimmy G and everything he has done. I mean, what a wild tenure that Jimmy Garoppolo has had with the San Francisco 49ers, but he will not be coming through those doors anytime soon. I really believe it is over. The Jimmy Garoppolo era has come to an end. But he has been the constant at the quarterback position. And we know what it is with the quarterback position. Trey Lance, he's coming back from 2 ankle surgeries. Let's see, what's today? The 20th. So in 2 days, Brock Purdy will be getting surgery on his UCL. And we still have yet to determine what the severity of that looks like. So some questions at quarterback. Defensive line. Nick Bosa's up for a contract extension. I don't know. What would you call this? Are we in rebuild mode or are we in retooling mode? What do you think? Drop it in the chat. I want to see what the squad is feeling like. I have an assumption of what I think you guys would feel, but I am curious to see like at what level do we think this roster construction that is going to take place by John Lynch, Adam Peters, Kyle Shanahan, and Prague Marate. Is this a rebuild or is this a retool? And if I had to kind of, define both of those things, I would say a rebuild. You're typically talking about rebuilds as coming in, blowing the whole thing up. A rebuild is what Kyle Shanahan did in 2017. A rebuild is taking over for Trent Baalke, taking all the dynamite that you can find, putting it on that roster, lighting it on fire, watching it implode, and then rebuilding it. That's what a rebuild, in my opinion, looks like. Obviously, we're looking at a situation right now where there's a lot of holes that need to be filled, but when we're looking at a retool, you still have a core, you still have enough pieces that all you need to do is kind of supplement in certain categories. So someone said need to blow it up. I don't think you need to blow it up. So I think we're all on the same page. We're in a big retool. We all got our construction hats on. We all got our drill guns in hand. We got our tool belts on, and we're ready to get to work because there's a lot of retooling that needs to occur. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they go about it this offseason. Obviously, we're about like what, a week away from the combine. We're less than a month away from free agency. Yes, 100%. Bob the Builder mode. We're straight Bob the Builder mode right now with this situation. Um, and I think too, obviously, because we have such a good core of players, it allows us to retool where we're not having to cut a bunch of contracts. We're not having to kind of uh, get rid of a bunch of guys. Essentially, what we're doing is we're regrouping. We're going back to the drawing boards, right? We're trying to discern who quarterback 3 is. We're trying to figure out who's the edge on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, who's playing right tackle, who's playing center. Now, there's a lot of those questions, right? A lot of those questions, but I don't think we could quantify it as a rebuild. We're what are we? We are effectively uh we're effectively kind of knocking out the wall in between the kitchen and the living room. We're adding on a back house. We're adding on whatever analogy you want to make. We're rebuild. We're re not rebuilding. We're retooling a little bit. So, do we have an Eagles fan in the chat? Always love a good Eagles fan in the chat. Shout out to all the Eagles, man. Shout out to the Eagles. What a great absolute performance. What a great season by the Eagles. Good job to the Eagles, man. Too bad you guys couldn't get it done when it mattered most. But still, great season to you all. Great season. You made it to the mountaintop just to fall down. But hey, almost had it. Good job. It's like the Geico commercial with the old guy with the dollar. He's like, "Oh, you almost had it." We don't give out participation awards around here. We don't give out what do you want? The slap on the back, like win it. It doesn't matter. So cry Eagles cry, man. Tired of Eagles fans. Like it's funny that Eagles fans still try to talk crap about the San Francisco 49ers as Super Bowl losers. Like, dude, no one cares, man. No one cares. So can't wait to see the Eagles next year. Looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good time. Uh, I agree with this one, dude. Congratulations to the Philly for having the sorriest fan base in all of sports. It was really funny to watch them try to like get on 49ers fans for crying, and then they just cried the entire they're still crying actually. But hey, it's fine. Shout out Eagles, man. You guys had a great year. You were that close away. But you know, when it mattered most, couldn't pull together. Hey, it happens. It happens sometimes. But oh my goodness. I can't wait. So I'm going to be asking you guys some questions, and you guys feel free to ask me questions back. We're going to try to keep this one pretty interactive today. We're going to keep it light. Oh, we are going to have a guest tomorrow. So because we are getting into draft season, I'm like pulling myself into draft season. I'm trying to like get myself like cuz I'm still like locked in for 49ers football, and draft season is outside of 49ers football. Obviously, we're scouting for the 49ers, but it's a completely different subcategory. Brad, have I found my first draft crush? Yes, I have. I have found my first draft crush. And he's an offensive lineman. But some of you may know him, some of you may not. But tomorrow at 1:30, I'm gonna be having Damian Parsons, aka Full Time Dame. He is the national scout for the Draft Network. He also hosts the Locked On NFL podcast. Um, so I'm having a certified draft nerd, a guy who is paid to scout and do this full time. Come on, and we're gonna geek out about draft prospects. So that's gonna be tomorrow. So I'm gonna ask him all the draft questions about who we should be looking at. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spit like this is what I'm looking for in said prospect. Who should we be looking at, or who should we go after? So shout out to Dane, man. He's a legend. He's been doing this a long time. If you are on Twitter or are kind of in the draft community on Twitter, you definitely know who Dame is. So excited to get him on. So we'll be doing that tomorrow for sure, for sure. But excited to get him on. And again, we got to get clued in to all the draft stuff that is coming up because combine's around the corner, and we got to figure out who the San Francisco 49ers are going to be looking at in this draft coming up. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to be looking at is obviously defensive tackle, because I think it was reported over the weekend. I'm not sure exact. I think it might have been Matt Barrows who reported it of The Athletic, that Javon Kinlaw, the 49ers likely won't be picking up his fifth-year option, and I don't think that's much of a surprise. I think we all knew that. I think we talked about it here too, especially when we've been talking, because also Javon Kinlaw was drafted in the first round. The San Francisco 49ers also drafted Brandon Aiyuk in the first round. We anticipate that the 49ers will pick up Aiyuk, but we did talk about how they're probably not going to pick up Javon Kinlaw's fifth-year option, because I think it would be around 10 million next year if they were to do that. So I think it's not much of a surprise. It makes sense. Unfortunately for Javon, he just hasn't been able to be on the field enough to really showcase what he is or what he could do. And, has had a lot of setbacks that come along with that. So last year or next year could definitely be the last year that we see Javon Kinlaw with the San Francisco 49ers. So, but they got to keep moving again. Name of the game is retool. How are you going to keep retooling? And what will be interesting is what the threshold that the San Francisco 49ers have for paying in spending on free agency. I think we have to look internally and think about who the San Francisco 49ers are going to re-sign. Obviously, they're going to extend Nick Bosa, but I don't think Nick Bosa's signing will have much of anything to do with the 49ers ability to sign in free agency, because what I've come to learn about contract extensions and things like that is the cap is pushed down the line. So if the 49ers and they will, they are going to re-sign Nick Bosa, they could effectively clear up more cap space by signing Nick Bosa, at least for this next or this particular offseason. So, and we do know that by restructuring guys like, what is it, Fred Warner, Eric Armstead, I think if they restructured Trent Williams, that they will automatically clear like 16 million, or they have an opportunity to clear 16 million in cap space. So they can go sign some players. So who is your wish list right now for free agency? I think right now one of the heavy favorites, right, is I think we all agree. I mean, we did our off-season priorities. The top two priorities that we landed on were O-line and D-line. So anything in the trenches, I think right now, San Francisco 49er fans would be all about. I If you could get Deron Payne on the interior, and if you can get some kind of edge next to him with speed, the 49ers have an opportunity to really go crazy. Hendrick says Deron Payne and Chauncey Gardner Johnson. I think I saw a report this morning that the Eagles are planning on franchise tagging Gardner Johnson. So that could be an opportunity for him to be off the market, actually. Let me double check because I'm pretty sure that I saw something about that today. But I did see something come out that the Eagles may be potentially looking at franchising, placing the franchise tag on Chauncey Gardner Johnson. So that would obviously take his hat out of the ring for any potential additions. So we'll see about that. But if the 49ers, what would you be willing to pay for Deron Payne? What would that price tag look like? Would you be okay if the San Francisco 49ers even theoretically overpaid for Deron Payne? I mean, Deron Payne's one of the younger free agents in this class. He has some of the best upside in this free agent class. I'm going to pull up what his expected contract figure is going to look like. But that would be a nice get. Let's see, where is it? There we go. So if we're looking at Deron Payne, where are you, buddy? Let's see here. Would you guys trade for Chase Young? Maybe. Hmm? I don't know. I don't know if I'd do it. I don't know if I'd do it. But that would be wild. You might be able to get well, if you think about it, Nick Bosa did won defensive player of the year off a torn ACL. Uh Chase Young didn't really get I think his first game back was against the San Francisco 49ers. So what we saw from Chase Young was nothing. Um because it was his first game back. So maybe you could get Chase Young relatively out of value. But so Deron Payne's current market evaluation is 5 years, 97 million, 19. That's an average of 19.4 a year. Are you guys good with spending 19 million a year on a defensive tackle? That's a lot of money. 100 milli for DT? Woo-hoo-hoo! That's that Dr. Evil numbers right there. That's that woo 100 milli? I like Deron Payne, man. I do. He's gonna be 26. He'll be 26 playing next year. So you'd have him figuratively until he's 31 with an average cost of 19 point. See, at that cost, that would make me probably because we talked about this, I think not too long ago, is that I think like you really can, especially with the defensive tackle position, you can kind of piece together like a defensive tackle with multiple players. You get your base down guy who's really good against the run. So first, second down, you kind of have your base down interior defensive tackle, right? Then you rotate in a Charles Omenihu, a Drake Jackson type on pass rushing situations to be able to rush from the three tech, the one tech on the interior. I feel like at that price again, if this is franchise mode in Madden and money is no cost, bring me Deron Payne. I don't care. But if you get me Hassan again, we were talking about this before. Hassan Ridgeway, you get Hassan Ridgeway back on like 1.5 million, who did pretty decently well. You maybe draft another defensive tackle. I don't know. That's a whoo woo 100 milli for DT. That's the hard part of free agency, man. If I had all this monopoly money and it didn't matter and cap space was just a figment of our imagination, uh maybe, you know. Yeah, maybe. I feel like that's the thing though. Think about this. Let's I can't believe we're going here. I promise you guys. I promise you I had no plans of going here. I had zero plans and I apologize in advance for having to take it here, but I think it's happening. I think it's happening in real time. Now, there are some different stipulations to it all, but do you wanna know what the market valuation of Brian Burns is? Alright, roll with me. Roll with me for a second here. Right now, the market value, again, according to Spotrac, is for Brian Burns is 4 years, 73,000,000. That is 18.3 on average per year. Now, Deron Payne would be phenomenal. He would be good, but if I'm about to spend that much money and if almost spend 100 if I'm willing to spend 100,000,000 on Deron Payne, you better make the dang call to the Carolina Panthers right now and say, how much for Brian Burns? How much? Because you can trade for Brian Burns, sign him to a contract, sign Bosa, then Burns to a contract extension. I unintentional. Completely unintentional, man. I think this would be an interesting question. How much for Derek Brown? I think they like Derek Brown. I think they do. But I have on record their general manager talking about they don't know. They don't know if they're going to sign Brian Burns to a contract extension. Well, we will. If we have the money, if that's what I'm saying though. Like if if we're talking about 5 years, 100,000,000 for Deron Payne, and we have that money and we're willing to spend it there, there's nothing stopping me. There's nothing stopping me from I so God, I think I would make the best GM when it comes to trades because when I fixate on a player, I would just be calling the general manager of said team literally every 2 weeks to the point where it's almost like Stockholm syndrome where he gets to the point where he's expecting my call, he's expecting to say no, and like then I'm just going to start like playing mind games with them until I somehow convince him to give me Brian Burns. I don't know. Obviously, again, I had no intention of talking about Brian Burns today, but if we are talking about Deron Payne, then oh, they would block me and easily. They would say, "See this number, never do not let him go through. This is a spam call." They would mark me as spam pretty much. But hey, persistence is key, right? I would be persistent as hell and it works. It works. Imagine if they have like a position with the San Francisco 49ers which was just a persistence coordinator, just someone to coordinate like how often you reach out to a potential general manager to inquire about a trade and just 3 years down the road they're like fine, all right, we're gonna give them to you, we're gonna give them to you, fine. Hey, there's a relationship there. We already traded for Christian McCaffrey. All right, I gotta stop talking about Brian Burns. Um, what other players? What other players are at the top of the list? Obviously, Deron Payne. Deron Payne at the top of the list. Again, 4 years, 100,000,000 though, or 5 years, 100,000,000. That's pricey. That is That is pricey, and I'm definitely not saying that they would trade for CMC back. I was saying we did the deal. There's a relationship there. Kalen Saunders, that's a good one. That one I think would be a little bit more cost effective for the 49ers. Um, I see. I like Deron Payne a lot. I don't know if I'm willing to spend that much on a defensive tackle that's not Chris Jones or not Aaron Donald. And I like Deron Payne quite a bit. Um, but we watched tape on Deron Payne this year. At least I saw one game all the way through. I still think that the other guy, Allen, is still better than him right now. So that would be the hardest thing for me right now is dropping the bag like that. 5 years, 100 million on Deron Payne would be very difficult for me. Now, on the other hand, if you wanted to go for a Kalen Saunders from the Chiefs, he's 26 years old. He'll be 27 playing next year. Former third round draft pick. His market value, 2 years, 12 million. So, and some change. That would be, I think, a little bit more effective. I think that would be a little bit more effective. Um, Orlando Brown. I think you're in that same category. Just, I don't think. Do you think Orlando Brown is going to hit the open market? Do you think he's going to get franchise tagged? Uh, I find it hard to believe that they let him just walk out the door for nothing. Um, I'm trying to see here. I'm not too familiar with Brown and his contract status, but I can pull it up here in about 2 seconds. Where are you? Um, but I mean, Brown would be fantastic to especially fill that hole left, likely by Mike McGlinchey. But why aren't they even showing him on? So, anyways, I don't know. I don't know if that would be the same situation where he'd get a lot of money. Jawan Taylor, I don't love it. I don't love. I think he's serviceable, but I think you just go with Colton McKivitz at this point. I don't think Jawan Taylor is anything that you would feel ultra great about. He's definitely a downgrade from Mike McGlinchey. So I think at that point you just kind of you rock with McKivitz at that point over trying to sign Taylor to like a $12 million a year contract. Um, so it's gonna be fascinating to see the way it all falls out. So I don't know. The 49ers are clearly they pay their own. So Bosa's going to get paid. They're going to go through and pay probably a couple more of their guys. We've talked about it before. Wouldn't be surprised actually if maybe Brendel gets stolen away. Um, just because um I don't know, just based on what he could potentially get on the open market. Maybe he gets stolen away. I don't know. McGlinchey's probably not going to be here, so it's going to be interesting to see But I don't think, again, trying to spend top dollar uh, on him is going to be the best case scenario. Evan Ingram after the season with the Jags. I liked Evan Ingram. Um, it'll be interesting to see what if he has another good season, he could be in for a nice contract extension. So that will be interesting to see. Again, I don't think we go Evan Ingram because I think the San Francisco 49ers need to find a tight end to upgrade this season. And that would hopefully mitigate trying to spend. I mean, Evan Ingram's probably going to want tight end one money next year. Again, the hope is George Kittle's going to be here for a while. So my best case scenario for the tight end spot is try to find that tight end two this year. Find him potentially in the draft if you can. Get him cost controlled and get in there with Kittle and play behind him. Yannick Ngakwe or Jesse Bates. I think Yannick wouldn't be bad. I don't think he would be like. I think I would like Charles Omenihu if it was like if you had to say Yannick or Omenihu, I'd probably pick Omenihu. I'd definitely pick Omenihu over Yannick. But if you could add Yannick, um, I wouldn't mind it. But he's also feels like more like he's a big end. I kind of want, even though we need a big end, I want like two Leos. I don't know if that is even possible, but I just want speed, man. I'm looking for ridiculous speed off the edge. I'm looking for Hassan Reddick speed. I'm looking for Brian Burns speed. I'm looking for fast. Davenport. I know Jordan Elliott's been big on Davenport. He's been posting a lot of clips. He's the combination of both. He really is like a complete edge player when it comes to being able to play against run and rush the passer. Davenport could be a guy. I know Jordan Elliott's been big on him. Ray says, "Hey, Brad, do you see any surprise trade the 49ers make this offseason?" Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit with the Debo Samuel trade rumors. I don't think it's going to be Debo. Again, I believe if the 49ers were going to trade Debo, it would have happened last year. I definitely don't think it's going to happen this year. So I don't think it's going to be Debo. The 49ers could surprise some people and trade someone. They have had some surprising trades in the past. Again, we've talked about it. Defoe, even the Quan Alexander trade was a bit was a bit shocking in real time. I think obviously looking back at it wasn't a big deal at all. Because obviously Dre Greenlaw stepped up and Aziz Al-Shaair stepped up. So losing Quan wasn't that big of a deal. Could they make a trade like that? Who would it be? That's going to be an interesting one. With and again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just thinking out loud. With CMC in the building, do you think the 49ers feel so confident at running back that maybe if they can get better value, like if they could trade Elijah Mitchell for a perceived upgrade at value, maybe they do that because they feel confident in TDP and Jordan Mason. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell is a 6th-round pick. If you could flip him for more, because I'm trying to think of it in a sense of who could you get the most value for? Who could you get the best return on investment? I like Mitchell. I wouldn't trade him personally, but I'm just trying to think of it from that standpoint. Who could you trade and get maybe more value than what you got him for? I think Elijah Mitchell could be one of those guys. Um, I I hate to say it out loud. Because you guys know me. I don't want this to happen. But if you're trying to maybe you're not going to pay him to a big time contract, uh, and his highest value could be right now. God, I hate saying it, because I wouldn't do it at all. You guys know what my vibe is. I would pay Brandon Ayuk, but again, then you have two wide receiver ones getting wide receiver one money. I think that's just one thing that I don't know if that would happen, but I don't think we can be naive to it. I wouldn't do it. Um, so I think if you're talking about a surprise trade, might be Ayuk. That would surprise me. I wouldn't like it. I'd be pretty upset about it. Uh, but you look at all the factors at play. I don't know. That could be one of them. So, um, and I think Brandon Ayuk has proved to be an all-around wide receiver. Do it as a blocker, do it as a runner. Um, Jennings potentially. Trying to think of who else like you could flip. Trying to think of how a front office would think. Like, what do they think that they can get value from? I would say Aiyuk would be at the top of the list. Elijah Mitchell would be at the top of the list. I don't know if they could flip Ambry Thomas. I don't think there's enough value there. Yeah, I don't know. Justin says, I know we don't like it, but Brad, do you see similarities between Brandon Ayuk and Dontavian Wicks? With Wicks, I feel like Wicks has a bigger presence. Um, I feel like he is much bigger body type. But he moves really well. He has he uses his size to get open. Um, I get Brandon Marshall vibes from Dontavian Wicks. Um, and that was like it was weird. It was like I'm like, all right, player comp. Who's my player comp for Wicks? And it was like Brandon Marshall. I was like, oh, that was an interesting like visual that popped into my head of a bigger bodied wide receiver, but moves really well, can is really phenomenal at the catch point, has routes, can do everything. Oh, well, this is an interesting thing that just I thought about, Justin. Have you heard the story about how Kyle Shanahan's what he would consider his first draft pick was Brandon Marshall? Have you heard that story from him? Where he was with the Texans and he was, I think, the wide receiver coach at the time. And he's either the wide receiver coach or like a QC or something, but he was in the wide receiver room in some capacity. And he was doing the he was scouting for potential wide receivers for the Texans to draft. He said that he told everyone in the Texans organization that they needed to draft Brandon Marshall, that Brandon Marshall is going to be a guy, all this, all that. I think he met with him. And then he told his dad, who at the time was coaching for Denver, all about um, Brandon Marshall and about how you got to check this guy out. Like he's the real deal, this, that, and the other thing. And then at the time, Brandon Marshall wasn't even on the Denver Broncos radar. They like had zero, like they weren't clued in on him at all. And then it's a good story because from my memory, it felt like it felt like Mike Shanahan kind of brushed Kyle off on the Brandon Marshall thing, and it made Kyle pissed off that no one was listening to him about Brandon Marshall. And then they drafted Brandon Marshall. And then later on, Mike told Kyle that, hey, we basically took him because of your recommendation and your eye. So how do we tie that back into uh Dontavian Wicks? Well, if I'm seeing a little bit of Brandon Marshall and Wicks, maybe Kyle is too. Quick story time. But no, that was it was a great little it was a great great story about how that was basically his first draft pick was Brandon Marshall. So maybe Wicks is the next Marshall. We'll see. Corey Soto says, "Aren't you kicking the can down the road when you restructure? Would you want the book on the hook to old players later down the line?" I'm okay with it. And the reason why I'm okay with it is because right now we have two quarterbacks on rookie pay scales. Um, and we're trying to win right now. So if I can load up now and deal with the consequences of the cap ramifications later on down the road. And I also think it is important that with the new TV deals, with the new revenue streams and income streams, um, the NFL should only be making more money. The cap should only be increasing, and as a result, uh, I think deals like today, where we're gasping at in 3 or 4 years aren't gonna be that bad. I mean, take, for example, Jimmy Garoppolo's contract extension that he got in 2017. Like, it was a bit daunting in 2017 to hear that Jimmy Garoppolo was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, but we also knew that 3, 4 years down the line, other contracts were going to pass it, and I think at its peak, I think before Jimmy restructured, he was still, I think, like a top 10 paid quarterback, which was a lot, but he was at the bottom. So theoretically, um, also the ability to build outs and things like that. I think what the 49ers have to do right now is they gotta win in this window. They are only gonna have Trent Williams for so long. They're only gonna have Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Charvarius Ward. They're only going to have these guys together for so many more years. That's why I'm okay with kicking the can down the road. Um, Obviously, I think they've done a really good job of structuring themselves to not get into that trouble, and we've seen them get into some of that trouble, with contracts like Weston Richburg or Jet McKinnon or D Ford, and what those, the D Ford kicking the can, what that looked like. It happens. It definitely does. Uh, but I think, man, the focus, and it's a hard balance. It's a hard balance. Again, I'm not a cap expert, but just from a fundamental standpoint, um, I would bet on the cap increasing, uh, and so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Uh, So that's kind of where I'm at. Well, that's a good question, Corey. It's definitely a great, which one, the lesser of two evils. I feel like as it stands right now, the way that the talent is structured on this team, the fact that they have rookie quarterbacks, yeah, you got to go all in a sense. Again, if you want to keep guys like Trent Williams from retiring, you got to show him that you're going all in. Once these players start, like, again, what did we ask at the very beginning? Is this a rebuild or a retool? Once they start getting the sense that they're in the middle of a rebuild, that's when guys start bailing. That's when guys start asking for trades. That's when guys start retiring. They start looking down the line like, I only got 2 years left. We're going into a rebuild. We're not winning anything. I'm just going to retire. I'm just going to collect what I collect. I'm going to retire. So, you want to keep your Trent Williams around, you better keep going all in. All in. Um, so aloha, my boy. What's good, Sean? Good to see you, Sean. Hope the new job's going well. Shout out OGSDS. Shout out OGSDS, man. Um, I got to start hitting the pavement, like Justin on these draft prospects, man. We got to get ready. Indy's coming up. Indy's going to be right around the corner. Uh, man, I haven't done a mock draft yet, which is wild. It's February 20th. I haven't done a mock draft yet. Who am I? Who is this person that has gone 2 months into the new year without a single mock draft? So that must mean it's time to do a mock draft. So don't be surprised if we get some mock drafts this week. Let's go. Would I do Buckner for Aiyuk? Uh, probably not. Probably not. I love Buck, but I don't like kind of going backwards in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, they did the deal, it was done, and it's kind of is what it is situation. So I love Buck, but I don't think I'd do it. Uh, are there any draft sons? Oh yeah, I got some draft sons. I could probably show a couple clippies. So I'm pretty all in on this Nick Saldiveri from Old Dominion. He is the right tackle on this play. You're going to see him wash 41 completely down. Um, he is fantastic in pass pro. He's like a Nick Sakel. He's going to be one of these guys that is going to be best on the interior. Even though he's a tackle at this level, he'll definitely be best suited playing. Let's see. He'll be best suited playing on the interior. But he moves so well. His technique, I'm a big technical guy. So if you got technique, you win my heart as an offensive lineman. Um, obviously showing he's got some power to his game as well. One of the things that I liked most about him in the Senior Bowls, which is where he caught my eye, I turned on the Senior Bowl and then instantly I saw the powder blue helmet. I saw him reach block an outside shaded uh, nose tackle, and I was like, "Who's that?" And I've fallen down the Nick Saldivari rabbit hole. I'll show you a rep that I really like to kind of showcase the type of technique that I'm talking about. So, what we talk about with Trent Williams all the time is kind of the way he manipulates defenders, right? So, if I can see a guy at Old Dominion who's playing right tackle, who will be best suited as a guard or a center in the NFL, working this hand baiting. So again, you get the nice clean kick step, wide base. He always keeps his left hand down and he will bait his right hand out. So as we know, defensive linemen, they're going to react to hands to try to rip, club, and initiate pass rush move. Well, you can see he's baiting his right hand out. So right when they go to initiate, he's moving it. And I love it. And he does this all the time. Look at the hand. He goes hand up and goes, nope. He pulls it back. And just because he gets his hand up and pulls it back, it causes the defensive end to fall down. Um, this type of technician on the interior would be fantastic for I love this guy. I think there's I think that like I was watching Old Dominion, all they do is pass. He's always in a 2-point stance, so he's going to have to probably have some refinement in the run game. I've seen that he can do it, whether it's one-on-ones or in the game at the Senior Bowl. But this is the stuff that's hard to teach. And the fact that he already has it and it's already ingrained into him, I'm sold. I think he'll be a top 100 prospect. He should be in the range of Peyton said. I think people are catching on to Saldivari. I saw him go in the second round. No way. Dang. I thought I was some cool kid who discovered Saldivari all on my own. Again, I turned on the Senior Bowl and I saw him win one rep and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And after that, I was sold. And I've watched him versus I watched him a full game versus Marshall, full game versus Virginia Tech. Uh and again, I don't think he's perfect, but he might be he might be my Abe Lucas of the interior. Again, I mean, the base, the kick step, you see the hand bait again. Now just imagine this at the center position. So, and also too, the reason why I think the 49ers would like him because he's kind of similar to Nick Zakel. I think they're both 6'6". They got the size, they got the speed. I mean, you saw the hand again. Watch the right hand out with bait, swims it under, and I technically he can play right tackle if if we need him to, right? I'm drafting him as a center, but theoretically he could play. I guess he could play tackle, but I do think he would be best on the interior. But he's a dog. I like him a lot. But I still got a lot of work to do. Still got a lot to work to do. And I think, you'll have to well, we saw it with Jake Brendel. Jake Brendel wasn't the strongest at the point of attack. What was Jake Brendel really good at? Jake Brendel was good at pass protection. He was good at passing off, seeing with his eyes, good base. Saldiveri is very good at all those things. He's one of the more technically gifted offensive linemen that I've seen in a while. Um, so um, and again, if you put that type of technique on the interior, I think you could really have something there. Um, so it will be really interesting to see. Corey Soto, appreciate the super chat. He says it's conventional, but win now seems to be a bit of a fallacy. Niners are beholden to this roster because of the quarterback snafu, whereas old Pats and KC could lose players because they had quarterback compensation. What do you mean by quarterback compensation? I think I know what you mean, but I do just want to give you a chance to clarify, Corey. But I think I do understand what you're saying in the overall terms of the Pats and KC had a top top quarterbacks in the league. And having one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL can really make a lot of the issues on the rest of the roster not seem as big because the quarterback can make up for a lot of those issues. Um, and I know the 49ers don't have that. They're not built like that right now. Uh, Corey says, I mean, quarterbacks who have that level to compensate for lost talent. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page. I think we're on the same page. And I agree with you. The 49ers are in that boat. That's why it is a tough position because it's almost like you have to insulate the quarterback versus having the quarterback and being able to have Miko Hardman, Valdez Scouting, Juju, and you make it work because you have a quarterback who makes it work, or Brady who turns Edelman and Wes Welker, um, whoever is at his disposal, um, into quality wide receivers. The James Whites of the world, what he was able to do with guys like that, Rex Burkhead, guys that are probably not really moving the needle on other rosters. And again, that's why you want the elite quarterback, right? Because they raise everyone else's play and they're able to put a lot of band-aids on things. I think the 49ers are in the opposite category, right? They have to insulate the quarterback position with as much talent to mitigate currently the inexperience at the quarterback position. Corey Soto said, Brad, would you say that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch built the team backwards? Um, I think from a logic standpoint, I think logically, I understand how they built the team, but obviously missing on Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster in your first draft makes it really difficult to say that they built it the right way. But if we're talking about if Solomon, if we're just again, just if we're playing the role and we're talking about, let's say DeForest Buckner was drafted at 3 in 2017 and they drafted Fred Warner in the first round in 2017. um I think we would be okay with how that was built. But I think what makes it really difficult is that the 49ers drafted Solomon. He turned out to be a bust. For whatever reason, that's just, that's what we call guys who are drafted that high and don't turn out. And they passed on Deshaun Watson and uh, Patrick Mahomes. So I understood the logic because that 2017 San Francisco 49ers team wasn't going to be good. It didn't matter who was playing quarterback. It didn't matter even if they hit on all those draft picks in 2017. It just wasn't going to be a good team. Um, they had so many holes. They blew up the roster so much. Um, so I could, again, building from scratch the way they did, I could understand in a sense, but it does. I understand too when you look back and you're like, man, what if the 49ers had Patrick Mahomes right now? What if they had Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Watson doesn't get into all that stuff off the field, blah, blah, blah. But, speaking purely from a football perspective, you have those quarterbacks, then you build the roster around those quarterbacks, then it feels like they're unstoppable, right? And it feels like we're still chasing, like, we're still having that conversation. Who's going to be the quarterback next year? Do we feel comfortable with the quarterback? And so I think that's kind of the point that you're making, Corey, which I totally understand. Um, but I think it also plays into why the San Francisco 49ers have to be aggressive in adding players. They've got to insulate the quarterback position with as much talent as they can, just because we simply, at the end of the day, as it stands right now, 2 days before Brock Purdy's surgery, we don't know. We don't know what is going to happen at that position. Um, so because of that, we know we have options. We know Brock Purdy from what we've seen, should be a capable option. Again, barring surgery. Trey Lance should be a capable option, barring steps backwards in his development. And the hope is that one of these two quarterbacks becomes a transcendent quarterback. But both quarterbacks have an uphill battle. I was thinking about this the other day. If you took Brock Purdy and Trey Lance and you morph them into one human being, and you took all their again, we're playing Frankenstein. If you took all their best traits and you put them together, intangible and tangible, it would be the best quarterback. I think he would be the best quarterback in the league. I think he'd be better than Mahomes, which again, it's completely hypothetical. But you take Trey Lance's raw skill set, the arm talent, the power of his arm, his frame, his size, um, like the physical tools, and you take Brock Purdy's like quick release and throwing motion and like the moxie and the escapability and the like, they both have pretty good pocket awareness. You just mash these two guys together. Brock Lance would be a phenomenal quarterback. Can we do that? How do we do that? How do we just take the two quarterbacks that we have and make them one quarterback? Is that possible? I imagined in today's scientific community that it probably is possible. They just haven't told us yet. But just mash them together. Brock Lance, best quarterback in the league. Trey Purdy, best quarterback in the league. I guarantee you, you take both of them and you just go one quarterback, all their best traits. We have the best quarterback in the league. Imagine like Brock Purdy with Trey Lance's traits, or vice versa, Trey Lance with Brock Purdy's intangible. Like, best quarterback in the league, man. Oh man, good stuff. We're past an hour, so we're clearly off the rails. Brad, what's going to be of Alfredo? Any positive hopes? Um, Alfredo, I think, is a phenomenal ambassador. Um, I think Alfredo has some promise. I think Alfredo is still kind of refining his game. And he really has just got to he's just really got to keep working on the technical side of things. And it'll be interesting. It will be really interesting to see what he looks like this training camp. But you can tell. I mean, and it's he doesn't get a whole lot of reps, so that's another thing that's like it's really hard to get better when you really can't even get reps in training camp. And that's the hard part of the NFL is like there's just there's not enough reps for everyone. Um, you know, I honestly think like if Alfredo had an opportunity to play in like the XFL or one of these leagues just to get the reps, just to get out there and play games, and like it'd probably be a benefit to him. I don't know if you could do that. Like that's why it'd be so cool if you had like a farm system to be like, all right, send this guy down to our Oakland team and get him some reps. Send him back. Um, his size is promising. He moves well. If he can keep developing his technique, but he has a spot. Like I think he's a great practice squad guy. I think he'll have. I don't know if he'll crack like a starting position anytime soon. I wouldn't have that expectation for him. If he were ever able to crack the active roster, that would be huge. Like if he could just crack the active roster, that means that they believe in him enough to potentially play. But yeah, like the G League. Like if you could send Alfredo would be perfect for an NFL G League. Like a guy who didn't play big time college ball, so he doesn't have that experience, and he's going straight to the NFL. It's such a steep learning curve. You don't get a lot of reps. Send him down to the G League, let him get some reps. Um, but unfortunately, he just doesn't get a whole lot of reps. So, but it'll be fun to see what he looks like this year. I'll definitely have my eye out for how Fredo's doing. He's had, you know, I think in his first camp, which was 2 years ago, I think he got like 4 reps the whole camp. So he's steadily making progress. He got definitely more reps last year. But again, it's just like it's just one of those things. Like, just need some time and all that good stuff. Um, but I appreciate you guys. Again, we're gonna be have a draft heavy show tomorrow. So make sure you tap in for that. Again, I'll be having um, Damian Parsons, who is a national scout for the NFL Draft Network, and he also hosts the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. So he'll be coming on to talk draft prospects, who we should be looking out for, all that good stuff. So tomorrow's going to be a big time draft heavy show. Looking forward to the conversation. Never had him on the show before, so we get to talk to someone new. Also isn't really a 49ers content creator. He's a draft content creator. So looking for it. He's verified, all that good stuff. Has been doing this for a long time. So excited for that conversation tomorrow. It'll be at 1:30 and all that good stuff. But for now, I'm out of here, guys. Appreciate you all. Grab your cookies on the way out. Y'all the best. We're out of here. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see